Collaborating for success in the exhibition industry is what we are all in here for. The sheer conception of IEIA was meant to ensure that the industry collaborates, partners, and start talking to each other. And the ecosystem which has been created by the association is a speaking truth and a proof of how people can talk and do things together. In today's session, we would like to talk about what things work, how they work, and how they can work better. I've got three distinguished speakers with me today. Mr. Ashish Kumar, partner, Eurasia Consulting. Ashish, please join us on stage, please. Mr. Surajit Bit, Director, Business Development and Corporate Strategy, Messi Düsseldorf India Private Limited. Surajit, please join us. And Mr. Pankaj Arora, Managing Director, Novistra Capital. Pankaj, please. We will make this session very interactive, and before we start our discussions, I've got three basic points to make. The entire exhibition fraternity all over the world realizes that India is the place to grow up the exhibition business. I personally feel we are still at the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot to be done. And in terms of what our achievements are in creating the exhibition industry as an industry, we are in the best business to be in. The industry will grow manifold, and all collaborative techniques, whether association tie-ups, industry tie-ups, acquisitions, joint ventures, everything should work in this industry. We have several luminaries sitting in this hall today, and I see a lot of people who have bought companies, bought shows in India. I see a lot of exhibition organizers who work for associations. I see a lot of global iconic shows being launched by the same people who are sitting in this hall today. Sirs, collaboration is the first step of writing a beautiful story. All four of us would like to work, discuss, talk, and try to showcase what has worked in India. And this would surely help our global guests here today to help them understand what is happening in India. Before I go to my seat, I would start with Surajit. MDI has been in India for several years, 2 decades. What has worked for you?
Thank you, Suraj. First of all, I want to thank President IEIA to give us an opportunity to speak on this such a relevant topic because to me, the surprises is in last 1 decade, particularly starting 2007, we have seen some fantabulous merger acquisitions in India, foreign entity coming in India, organizing international fairs, changing the entire landscape. But what worked for us in last 2 decades is first being a trade fair organizers and venue owners. I wanted to educate some of the audience over here. The premises where we sit in when this was developed earlier, and Sooraj and the President IEIA told me that the architecture and the design of this particular halls and the infrastructure was done by Messi Düsseldorf. So we were there in the market for some time. The only objective which worked for us is that we were not very aggressive. We identified key target areas, industries. We tied up with local bodies. The only thing with which we didn't do to compete with the local brands. The idea was very simple, that you have established industry players in exhibitions, and we didn't want to disturb the landscape. We only made our foray in the areas where we saw that there's a significant opportunity. And we did work with, particularly to understand the psyche of the customers first, because what was determined from the headquarters, particularly in Düsseldorf, was that we should be the partner in the growth of the economy. Secondly, geoclone and launch those shows which can change the landscape, and also at the same time be the partners with other domestic and international organizers to further shape the industry. We did try several models in India, Sooraj, honestly. We did try it with industry associations, and particularly we were very slow in merger acquisitions. The reason was very simple, that we wanted to study what's happening, because every country has a different kind of a structure. Every country plays in a different operating model, and every country behaves in a very different pattern. So there are a few examples which I will quote as we further have a discussion. But what was significant for us was that whatever we did it with a lot of dedication. We did it with a lot of focused approach, and we did it with a vision that this will be achieved to the further growth, not only for the industry, for us, because we didn't want it to prove ourselves as a flyback night operators, which has happened earlier. And as I mentioned, and I want to reiterate that the last 10 years was very significant for the industry, and last 6 months was further very interesting, because we have seen lot of change of operating models between organizers who are the top players, between kind of an alignment between domestic and international shows, and the kind of faith which has been shown in the Asian market, particularly landscape, followed by India. So yes, we are a family of messes, and I can see a lot of messes over here. So everybody has a similar kind of a function and the objective, but what is different from each other is how you want to operate in the market. So a broad kind of a structure which I've already presented. Furthermore, I would not say that we have made all our relationships right. Yes, there were failed relationships, but we have learned out of it in the last 2 decades, and we decided that the lessons learned should not be carried forward for all our approaches going in terms of merger acquisitions, launching of shows, geocloning, and so on and so forth.
Great thoughts. See, as Surajit mentioned, we have a lot of German cousins sitting in this room, a lot of European faces as well. One question again to Surajit. What is your take on acquisitions? A lot of our domestic exhibition organizer friends really love the buzzword, through our friends on my left, that somebody is looking at you very carefully.
Okay, so first of all, we didn't do any significant acquisition in the last 1 year. So congratulations to lot of Messer family, that the acquisition which has happened, particularly Bhupendra, Mr. Manek and the rest of. So a big round of applause for some of the significant acquisitions which has happened in the last 6 months, because we feel proud that those acquisitions are very significant at different levels. As I told you, I want to quote an example. In 2010, we are the market leaders in the metal segment worldwide. We have a wire, tube, metal shows worldwide. So when Messe Düsseldorf came to India, and that was when we had already consumed a significant amount of time, we realized that there's a show with CII, a very prominent body, industry body, a lobbying body, and it was realized that they have a wire and cable show. So we didn't decide to compete with the market, to compete with the industry association. So we approached them, and we promised them we can bring international expertise, some of the flavors of international standards, but we never said that we will be launching our own show. So it was a very good understanding, and in 2010, we acquired the wire and cable show from CII. I would term this as one of the significant acquisition or a joint venture which happened at a very strategic level. One of my fellow colleagues, Yogesh, is sitting out here. It was in, I think, 2012, UBM India did a very significant acquisition on a non-expertise area, which was renewable energy. And it's one of the cash cow, if I have to quote that. and one of the significant portfolio of UBM India. So when I say acquisitions, those acquisitions are sweet acquisitions, I would say, but still the larger part of the acquisitions in India is fragmented. We don't have a definite multipliers. We don't have a definite working operating models. We work on different parameters. We don't have a set procedures of doing due diligences. We don't have an apex body where most of the guys goes for financial and legal due diligences. There are a lot of impatience in the market in terms of what's the MRP of my show, particularly when there's a tie-up or a potential acquisition discussion between a domestic and international organizer, because there's a long chain of approaches. And I always quoted that the first trimester is very different, the second trimester is very different, the third trimester is very different. So as we go forward, I see there are a lot of consolidations are happening. We have private equity players, we have a lot of legal companies who are coming in and giving their set of expertise how to move forward. The second example which I wanted to quote is, again, from one of the events which we are leading in the worldwide segment is on plastics and rubber. So we have a strategic alliance with Plastic India Foundation, where we have a significant contribution of international participation of companies from North America, Germany, and rest of Europe. And we never made a foray that we will venture out and have a show by ourselves because we are market leaders. So that is where I see a strategic relationship with not competing with the local bodies or the brands, but tie-ups. The significant acquisition which we did last was the Insto Asia, which is on the retail space, and that was a beautiful model. We again have a show in Düsseldorf, and we decided that, yeah, this is a show, we can bring the international expertise, but the landscape is very different. So we did that acquisition, but the acquisition was built on the principles of there's a cooperation for next 4 years. We will see the market expertise because they have been handling the shows for almost a decade. We will learn the expertise, we carry forward the experiences, and then it is when it fully comes back to Messe Düsseldorf, India. But in between, I also see a synergy that between acquisitions, you can still have an acquisition, which I discussed with you, that how you scale up. A potential domestic organizer have built up a show over a period of time, and you add international flavor, but there are plus, that those plus are what flavor you bring to the table. And then furthermore, there are competition, and how you can consolidate the competition in terms of technology, so on and so forth, so that it is one market going forward. Because at the end of the day, the objective is not to confuse the customer or the industry, but to consolidate the entire industry. So I have, with my limited experience in the last 70 years, I see the consolidation has already started. We will see definitely a majority in terms of level playing ground, but we have still a long way to go.
Great ideas. See, for the domestic exhibition organizers in India, not everybody is looking towards MNC players and talking, buy me out. Some of these guys are also looking towards scaling up the exhibitions owned by them on their own. And that is where capital raise comes into big importance. When the exhibitions start being a service sector, a non-collateralized based industry, where there is no hard assets which can be given to banks to raise capital, private equity is emerging as a possible area where Indian exhibition organizers can raise their scale of operations by taking money. I would like to ask Pankaj a question on private equity. What is his take on how money is being made available to the Indian organizers in private equity? And any pearls of wisdom for our domestic organizers, how they can scale up and get money?
Thanks, Sooraj, and good afternoon, everyone. I would actually like to take a global perspective before I talk about the India market specifically. Exhibition industry as an asset class has been very attractive for the private equity investors for multiple reasons. If I look at globally, the overall size of the market is about $50 billion with about 30,000 to 40,000 major trade shows being organized across the globe. And top 10 players only control about 20% of the market share, which means it's a very fragmented market, ripe for consolidation. There are strong revenue and margin profiles, positive cash flows, low receivables risk, low working capital requirement, low staffing requirements. So these are some of the factors which make exhibition industry as a very attractive segment for private equity guys to look at. And we have seen, this is the reason we have seen a flurry of activities happening in the private equity space in the Western Europe, also in the North American markets, and also now in Dubai, Singapore, and other places. I think one of the things, the most important thing for a private equity person to put in capital is to look at the growth prospects of the company. That's the single most important factor that a private equity person will look at. And an exhibition industry provides a very strong growth potential in multiple sense. One, if a private equity person is able to invest at the right time in a large scaled-up asset, then there is potential to do multiple bolt-on acquisitions around that. There is potential to build IP, which will create entry barriers for other people in the market. There is potential for geo-cloning that we spoke about earlier. So these are various factors which a private equity person looks at while making an investment. The most important one is availability of scaled-up assets in the market. So I would take some names. If you look at UBM acquiring Advent Star, which was again a private equity backed and hedge fund backed company for a valuation of $950 million, which was at a 10x EBITDA multiple, and so on and so forth. We see Providence Equity, who acquired Clarion Equity. Clarion then further acquired multiple bolt-on acquisitions around under expositions and so on. While if I look at India now, for example, because of the various challenges in the Indian industry, it's very different from a global exhibition market today, right? It's about 25,000 crore in size, about 700 large exhibitions, but 10 times more unorganized, smaller exhibitions happening in India today. So it's a very unorganized, nascent sector at this point of time. And due to various factors like non-availability of high-quality exhibition venues, confusion in the tax structure, lack of public-private partnerships at this point in time, due to some of these factors, there are not too many scaled-up assets which are available in the market today. So we see a very fragmented market. If you exclude those top 700 exhibitions, which are kind of mostly controlled by associations, the other ones are really small assets that are available in the market. Then there are other issues which a private equity person faces when they evaluate an asset exhibition market in India. One of them being, in most of the cases, there is a lack of professional management. There are issues related to quality of reporting. There are issues related to governance. There are significant cash transactions which are happening in the industry today. These are some of the factors which are kind of restricting involvement of private equity in the Indian market, exhibition market today. Instead of that, we see a lot of interest coming in from international strategics in the Indian market, and that's where a lot of acquisitions and investments are happening. So my take is, at this point of time, it's more of a strategic play in Indian exhibition market than being a private equity play. Having said that, there are a lot of positive things happening in the market, like there are structural changes related to GST, there are changes related to public-private partnerships, there are high-quality venues getting created. So that will help in creating more scaled-up assets in the exhibition market going forward. And then it will become a fair play for a strategic and a private equity person to play in the Indian market.
Thank you. A follow-up question for you. What would be the 3 pearls of wisdom to a private organizer in India if he has got plans to do a go-to-market exercise?
So as I said, one obviously is focus on the quality of reporting, focus on the governance, make sure the financials reporting is intact, you are doing proper audits at time, because that's one of the main things that a private equity investor will look at. Second is don't rush in to raise capital. So if you can afford to go the debt way, for example, to grow business, do that. That is second. And third one is make sure that you have a good management, professional management team on board so that you can drive the business in the right direction.
Thank you. Ashish, in terms of your viewpoints, most of the Indian exhibition organizers have started small. They are now getting bigger. They need more professional advice on how to scale up either the operations or how to do the fundraising to reach the next level. What is your advice on how the scaling up could happen either financially or tactically or strategically?
Right. Good afternoon all. A good part of this question I think has already been addressed by Pankaj. Let me just take you back to a couple of figures which we saw yesterday, which was, let's say, more specific to the market. I mean, we saw that we are talking about an industry which is about 220 players, out of which 15 players are accounting for 50% of the share. So that tells us how fragmented the rest of the market is. That is one. The second thing is something which became very loud and clear yesterday is that we are looking forward for a double-digit kind of a growth. And that is what all of you should be getting ready for. If you want to be participating in this double-digit growth, that means a prerequisite for any kind of collaboration, cooperation to take place is to be able to instill the confidence in your stakeholders. Now, that stakeholder could be a debt guy, could be a private equity guy, or could be a joint venture partner, or could be your buyer. The prerequisite for all of this is transparency, governance, compliance. And that is one thing which is, I would say, largely missing in a bulk of those 205 players we are talking about here. I'm not saying that all, but there is a good part wherein this is a big gray area. Till the time we are really going to work around this particular aspect of the whole, let's say, internal functioning of an organization, this is not going to instill a lot of confidence, whether you talk about any, Messe or any of the foreign MNCs who will be looking at you seriously as a M&A target. So that is one thing which has to really start from yesterday. Otherwise, M&A is, at the moment, it's a nice buzzword, it's a nice thing to really talk about, but it's not really happening much. The kind of industry we have, the kind of growth we are talking about, this should have been a lot more as compared to what we see today. I don't think so personally that private equity is playing a huge role in M&A in India as far as the exhibition industry is concerned, and please, Pankaj could correct me over here. Whether we talk about raising fund via private equity or via debt, wherever, we are talking about organized institutions, and they will seek transparency on your books, and that is where it has to start. Your reporting structures, your bookkeeping has to be authentic, reliable. That is a prerequisite for any kind of process to get started. That is first step. Now, let's assume that we are in an ideal world and we have all of this in place. What is the next step we get into? We get into a kind of a business planning exercise that, okay, let's say I'm getting involved in a kind of a M&A transaction. So, assuming the numbers, the books are good, the next thing is you prepare a kind of a minimum 3 or a 5 year kind of a business plan. Now, this need not be a fantasy. This has to really come from the market. You know, it cannot be just based on some kind of, let's say, assumptions which cannot be backed up. I need to come from the industry. So if I'm talking about pharma or if I'm talking about, let's say, construction equipment, then these business planning really need to come from the market. And that is what is really going to the seller in this particular case has to come up with very realistic kind of valuations, yeah? Because ultimately that is what you are talking about here. Because unfortunately, the whole negotiation process in India is super iterative, and at times it is quite frustrating for both sides because you end up, having no conclusion out of the whole process, yeah? So I think it's very important to have your ears on the ground and know what your market is and come to realistic numbers, realistic valuations. It's a huge time which is going to get spent on this particular exercise from both sides. After valuation, what happens? Transaction, the actual transaction. So here, I think the buyer as well as the seller has to be really open has to be very open to new models. You know, one can of course have a kind of a one-time cash out kind of a model, which I think is more and more non-existent in the market today. So as a seller, I have to be open to the idea that I'm going to be engaged in this transaction for a period of time, right? Because that tells the buyer how confident are you about your business plan. Yes, feel free to mark a premium on that, very well accepted, because if you're able to live your business plan, then you deserve it, yeah? And the last thing which comes purely from a process standpoint is, the idea is to support your partner over here, whether it is a JV partner or it's your buyer, from the sense that it's not that I have to just meet the top and the bottom line, but very important is this post-merger integration of two organizations, which is, let's say, kind of ignored and neglected a lot of times. The HR, all these inter-organizational cultural issues, I think that is the biggest challenge. So that is where the role of the seller actually should conclude over here. Now that's a happy transaction at the end of it, but it sounds quite idealistic, but these are the only ones which actually end up being successful, because what we always talk about is that, okay, you know, it's a nice news, somebody acquired somebody, yes, that creates a lot of top line news over here. How many of these acquisitions actually end up surviving? How many of these acquisitions actually end up being successful? And how many actually go down? Unfortunately, the numbers on the negative side are a lot more than really the successful ones. So that's why one really has to run through the process, take it step by step, stick to the book. It's got, that's what I would really want to point it out here.
See, all collaborations, marriages take place because there's a desire to make the family bigger, take the legacy forward. And at times, you've rightly said, there are certain messy divorces as well. I would like to hear from Surajit. In terms of scaling up post an acquisition or post a collaborative partnership, how do MNCs, what are the key learnings MNCs have seen in India in terms of how the integration takes place, and what are the key areas which Indian partners should look towards to see that the marriage is intact and they live together happily for a long term?
Yeah, I completely agree, because there are more divorces than marriages, particularly the post-acquisition, which we have seen in some of the cases. But, you know, I would not term this as a post-acquisition scaling up strategy. Right now, there are some smart moves which are done by most of the international players in India, that there is a thought-through process. So, besides deciding on the multipliers and arriving at a price, depending upon the age, nature, type, and industry it caters to before acquisition, what the organizers are a little cautious about is to develop a pre-post strategy, right? So they develop a pre-strategy. So what would be the post strategy? Which is very fundamental and important for an industry like us. Because as I mentioned, and I refer back to the last 10 years, the acquisitions are merely done, some of the acquisitions have been done on a very emotional basis, right? This is an expertise area we need to enter. This is the right kind of a strategy. You have a multiple view from the domestic market, the people operating out here, the people sitting outside has a different view about the market in India. So those marriages internally are also very important, because you see most of the discussion fell between the cracks, and that has a long gestation period. So that strategy needs to be developed well in advance. And once you have developed a strategy, you need to understand both financially how it looks like over a period of 10 years, how you want to sustain it out, and at the same time, how you want to scale it up. So one of the important things in the partnerships or the merger acquisition, what we have seen in India is not a 100% buyout, you know. So it's something like maybe 50-50, 60-40 kind of a adventurous kind of a financial deal, where the corporation exists with the existing partner over a period of time, because the set of expertise are not transferred overnight. It happens over the period of time, and there is a consultancy and you need to enter into that particular market, get into the shoes of those customers because it's a very sensitive market. The transfer of relationship is not very easy. If it is a domestic organizer, which is a single-owned entity, and I will call a proprietor or a managing director, even for a 9 square meter booth, he calls up that guy directly. I leave it to you, the best place in the floor plan, but I need 9 square meter. And the managing director has to honor that commitment because he is participating over the years and he has developed a relationship. So transfer of relationship is very important and that should happen gradually. And it should be a plan where not only scaling up financially, but scaling up in terms of multiplying the relationship with the existing one and the newer ones. So that is what I see is the market going forward. As we speak about the divorces and what I call this as an emotional kind of a relationship, which has happened earlier and we have seen a fallout. In my experiences, I have seen a fallout where it has gone haywire, no relationship has sustained, and you're confusing the market. So you say that this is one house where you need to come, and after some time, you know the houses are divided. They stay there, we stay here, and there is a conflicting interest. So I think it is very, very important for an organization because it's not about it's not about the growth of the company, which I say, but it's about what you deliver back to the market, and particularly in the prominent industry segments. That is why we are having a discussion that the acquisitions are independent about the age of the show. They are decided on certain parameters based on number of exhibitors, number of visitors, which target segment it catered to, so on and so forth. So that is why I see scaling up rather than a vanilla kind of a flat structure.
See, I hear two things. We've always done it like this. When a daughter-in-law comes to a new house, the mom-in-law always says that, look, we've always done it like this here. And somebody says, my way or highway. So, Pankaj, if I were to take 10 seconds from you, fundraise or sell out for Indian companies? You take that one. You take that one, please.
Sell out.
And Ashish, what is your opinion? Fundraise or sell out?
I would go for a fundraise. I mean, depending on who you are. I mean, I don't want to kill your, game over here. If the idea of creating and building something is to actually eventually sell it off, then of course go for a sell-off. But if your idea is to really compete and grow in that market, then of course you will go for a fundraise.
So I would like to add something. So when I say sell out, it does not mean that you have to exit the business immediately. So management team, and I think the buyer would like the management team to continue with the acquired organization for as long as possible. We were actually running a process, sell-side process for India Art Fair a few years back, where MCH acquired a 60% stake in them. The promoter stayed with the company, and they are still with the company as a stakeholder. So I think you can still stay with the company even after the sellout, help in growth, and even benefit from the international experience of the strategic who is acquiring you, and also from the processes and other transformational thing that they can bring and add value to the company as such.
So you've got two experts with different opinions. They tend to agree on a hybrid model. We have got about 10 minutes left before we have some audience questions. I've got a khatarnak session which I call as truth or dare. So I'll ask them questions, they'll just answer that single word. So Pankaj, P or debt?
P.
That's his job.
So Surajit, buyout or partnership?
Both.
Buyout or partnership?
Both. It depends upon what market you cater to. If it's an association kind of a model, then partnership. Buyout, independent entities. That's why I see, dependent upon which criteria you do fit in. So that's why I call both.
So Ashish, there is a sellout MNC advisory role you have. 4x of revenue or 10x of EBITDA?
Always profitability. Revenue doesn't make sense, has to be bottom line.
So this is very important insight for our domestic players. Even though the top lines look very rosy, people want to see what meat you have. Surajit, create an exhibition or buy an exhibition?
In the current scenario, buyout.
So, heartening news for our domestic friends. There are people who want to buy you out. Ashish, an MNC transaction, time horizon, 6 months or 6 years?
Can you repeat?
A time horizon for a decision, 6 months or 6 years?
If you want to go for a buyout, do it now. You can't wait for 6 years. Doesn't make sense from our point of view.
People are so bullish.
But you had asked him regarding partnership and...
See, I wanted to ask him create or buy.
Sorry. Then I would rather go for the create and not for the...
See, a lot of MNCs sitting over here have got iconic legacy brands back home. Rather than doing a tough exercise of bringing that brand to India, they like to buy a smaller player and say, okay, now we'll use the same hybrid model and do the same business in India. Personally, I would feel that those iconic brands should come to India. So the topic mentioned about collaboration. So I go back to Surajit again. Collaborations, associations or private sector?
Private sectors preferably, because the orientation of the headache gets minimized. Association is important because you need to change the industry.
So Pankaj, for you, you are advising a domestic client on a transaction, 51% or 100% or 20%?
20%.
So he says that you in cash and buy your Bentley, but keep 20% with you. Don't sell entire money. So we have a lot of exhibition venue owners also. So question for the German cousins, collaborating with venue owners or collaborating with associations?
Tricky. I think associations, being a trade fair venue organizers as well. I will go for it, yeah.
So you feel venue owners should remain venue owners and focus on the infrastructure?
In that genre, yes. But you have your own shows which are market leaders, so you should focus on that and different models altogether.
So one question for Ashish and Pankaj. Sleeping with the enemy or killing the enemy? Or collaborating with the enemy?
Ashish, you want to go first?
I like the sleeping part and I like the collaborating part. Why kill when you can get what you want by sleeping with him?
See, some of the shows in India unfortunately have been killed after the acquisition, but he believes in creating a legacy and making the family bigger. Let's have some questions from the crowd. We have got such eminent people sitting with me today. So any questions? Please introduce yourself and direct your question to a particular person. Yes, somebody in center. Yes, please. Mic would be coming.
Hello. My name is R.K. Agrawal, Managing Director, Indore Infoline Private Limited. We are the organizer of industrial exhibitions across the countries in more than 12 cities. See, their concepts are changing. We have been speaking about M&A, but it is a fundamental rule. If you are ready to sell anything, there is no buyer. When you don't want to sell, then there are thousands of buyers in the market. So that is the fundamental rule. This is one. So whatever we talk, merger and acquisitions, what. But nothing will happen if you are ready to sell. If you are not ready to sell, then thousands of people will be at your door. So that is my experience. Second subject which we can cover here in this IEIA seminar is a part of financial discussions. It is the creation of wealth. We have other options also, like we can come out with an IPO. I think we need to discuss this matter a lot. How IPOs, in present scenario, we are not finding anybody in our exhibition industry having listed on BSE. Where we can capitalize our value, we can create wealth, and we can multiply our efforts in a much better way. So we need to understand the concepts of IPO in a better way. I think that will take a lot of time to understand and explain here. So
That's
these are the
great
parameters. And third session, like venues, like Hightex is very successful event venue here in Hyderabad. Why they are not multiplying it in other cities of the country? Only one Hightex or BIEC in Bangalore is there, which is a beautiful exhibition center. But why these people are not replicating it in other cities of the country? Why we are sticking to only one exhibition center, maybe Hightex, maybe BIAC, or other venues? It to be discussed in a better platform. These are my suggestions. Thank you.
So great suggestions. I just would want to add one thing to this. My friend Ashish Chauhan runs Bombay Stock Exchange, and they have a fantastic product called BSC SME listing. Together with IEIA, we would request BSC very soon to come up with a seminar on fundraising. It can happen in Mumbai or wherever IEIA would decide. And in terms of what venues BIEC or Hightex would like to expand in, we also see NESCO top management sitting here. Sirs, people want you to expand in other cities. The industry will only grow if you grow. So let us look forward to your next announcement where your next exhibition center is coming up. Any other questions, please?
One gentleman right here.
Yes, please.
Please.
My name is Andrew Kay. I'm from Hong Kong. I'm a private organizer. I always hear your excuse of selling an event is to get money. But what is money for? Ownership in a small and profitable company is better than anything. Thank you.
Sir, I totally agree with you. That is why so many of our domestic organizers want to stay put. They want to run their companies the way they want, 100%. India is a country of entrepreneurs. A lot of us have not gone through the temptation of getting a large money, but we are here as private organizers as well. Point very well taken, sir. Any other questions, please? If there are no questions, maybe we can give each of our panelists a minute each to give their insights about India 2050. What do they think next 20, 25 years, how the industry will transform? See, Prime Minister Modi, our government has been talking about how next 30 years we'll see a brand new India. And 2050 is the benchmark year where they say that India would have peaked and then the baton will go towards Africa. So next 20 years, how do you think this industry will transform? Just 30 seconds each.
I think we are already seeing the change happening in the right direction. We see investments in the infrastructure, which is, I think, the single most important factor for the exhibition industry to grow. We see the state-of-the-art venues coming up, like the Reliance Convention Center in Mumbai. So I think that is something which India is going to have a lot of infrastructure availability by 2025. And the second thing which is happening is more control in terms of, after the GST has come in, there is more clarity in terms of the tax applicability across states. So along with Tier 1 cities, Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities will also become important hubs for exhibition industry to get into. And I think there is going to be more and more focus on the B2B events and building IPs around B2B events.
Thank you. Ashish, your opinion?
Yeah. So I'm personally very bullish on this sector, and I think if I look at maybe another 10 years down the line, 2030 kind of a thing, and the major boost coming from the infrastructure, which is expected to be coming up, I think that's going to be a big game changer over here in terms of how the exhibition sizes, the scale is going to develop. So that is one thing, pretty positive on that. I think I would really hope to see a more organized, let's say, the small and mid-sized kind of a sector in terms of processes, internal processes. That's what I would like to see. I don't know whether that will happen or not, but I'm sure it will improve. The two things which, in addition, I would really look forward for is to see outbound transactions. I would love to see a domestic Indian exhibition organizer buying out a multinational. That would be fantastic. Because it's not just, we always, whenever we talk about M&A, we always talk about inbound transaction. So outbound will be interesting. And also a domestic to domestic transaction would be quite exciting. I don't really know of any domestic to domestic transaction which has really happened. Maybe you guys are aware of. It'll be nice to know if there is something which is taken and really added value to the whole thing. So there are some things which I would really want to see in the next, let's say, a couple of years.
So 30 seconds to Surajit.
Yeah, 2050, we, definitely a strategy. Our immediate strategy is to come back next year at IEIA and see ourselves as the top 10 organizers, international organizers, because of India. So that's the immediate strategy. For 2050, the strategy is to grow the business in India as per the expectations of the parent company. We want to enter a few niche markets, continue M&As which are relevant as per the strategy of the company on key areas and industries. But having said that, we wanted to focus on the non-expertise areas as well, because those are, we are bullish about that. There is a separate strategy which we are forming towards that, and we have no hesitation to share with the industry as well.
Thank you very much. Before I close, one question for Ashish. I just heard that he said that Indian exhibition industry is 4,000 CR right now. When do we hit 10,000 CR? Just the year.
10,000 CR. I think it should be sometime around, I would give it at least 5 to 7 years.
So we'll double in 5 years, maybe more than that. Thank you very much. Over to MC, please.
Thank you very much to all our panelists. Thank you very much to our moderator, Mr. Dhawan. And what a fantastic job they've done. Come on, ladies and gentlemen, can we give it up for them? What a engaging discussion this was. All right, we're requesting Mr. S. Balasubramanian to please, who's the Executive Director at IMTMA and the COO, Bangalore International Exhibition Center, to kindly hand over the mementos as a token of our appreciation. Much gratitude to all our panelists and, of course, to our moderator. Thank you very much, Mr. Surajit Bit. Thank you very much, Mr. Ashish Kumar and Mr. Pankaj Arora, for a healthy discussion. Ashish ji, special thanks for, being on stage in different roles that you've come up and presented, and now, of course, in this panel discussion as well. Thank you very much, Mr. Subramanian. Thank you very much.